Game on for a brand new season in 2026. The drivers all know this car from front to tail, but they will know that the RadicalSimRacing.com European Championship 2025, powered by RaceData.ai, is here at Mugello as we get ourselves ready for racing action to start off this season. My name's Jake Sperry, Kevin Ellis Jr., the pro stripe, along with me for today's run. And Kevin, Mugello starts as a circuit that tests your ability to carry mid-corner speed. So many chicanes, each with a slightly different profile to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an absolutely great circuit. It's got a big, massive, long straight, which is going to obviously accommodate a lot of overtaking today. But as you mentioned, that minimum speed is going to be absolutely key through these long, flowing corners. It puts a lot of stress on the tyres, a lot of stress on the engine, a lot of stress on the drivers as well. So seeing who can manage the tyres during this race is going to be absolutely key for these guys.
Now, we'll run at least one a month as we will run through to October. We start at Mugello. We go to circuits like Spa, Brands Hatch, the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Adelaide is a street circuit then at the halfway stage. And then the Grand Prix circuit of the Nürburgring, Silverstone, Mosport, Barcelona and Charlotte Roval. I would say, Kevin, a little mix of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They've made a good change to the schedule here to try and accommodate for some high speed overtaking opportunities. And then you go to tracks like Brands Hatch where it's tight, twisty, difficult to overtake, not a lot of space. And then obviously Mugello, Spa, great tracks for overtaking. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting to see how these races pan out and how these guys manage all the different types of circuit that we're going to go to this season.
And not only that, it is a brand new format here for this one. So as they run through, they will split themselves after qualifying into two heats. They will be 45 minutes long, and they've got the mandatory two-stop requirement to go and deal with. Top 7 will go through from each into that. They will then, those who didn't make it through, have a consolation race. The winner of the consolation will get to the back of the field and effectively be your lucky dog P15 to try and jump in for the points. Then as they will set themselves up. They have, of course, a lot to try and understand over the course of this race. There is also one fast repair as they go about, and they will look around at it and say a drive-through penalty is at 17 instants. There is live stewarding, but no situations on track can be protested, and they will be decided upon by fairgrid.co. So they've all got to try and get there for. There are points, of course, for where you finish and how clean you are. So a lack of incidents will certainly help you score points over the course of this format. And so there is that element of you want great driving, you also want clean driving.
That's the key to winning a championship. You've got to maximise results and minimise the penalty points and minimise the incidents. So yeah, keeping it as clean as possible for these guys is going to be key. Like consistency is always the key to a championship. It's better to finish every race in second than have 50% win, 50% DNF.
Very much true. Now, here's a little look at what they are looking about for this. So every champion of class, if you're pro class, you get 12-month subscription and as well free entry for 2027 into the Radical Sim Racing Championship. This also includes the Americas Championship, which will be happening later tonight. And class will get 6 months. P2 will get free entry and will qualify for the World Finals. That is the same for both from P3 to 7, a direct entry into the 2026 World Finals only. Then those in P8 to 14 Championship, they go to the finals qualifiers to try and get themselves sorted. In the Teams Championship, the team that does their best will get a track in iRacing per driver that is in the team and free entry into the 2027 season. And for those vice champions out there, those second in the championship, they get that free entry in for 2027. So a lot riding on the line here from a very competitive series out there, which doesn't just entice the drivers individually, it also entices you to pair up with a friend. A little look then as qualifying is about to get itself underway, or is underway at the moment. 32 degrees track temperature. I would say that is in the middle in terms of what drivers want. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. out there at the moment. These first times coming in, you'll be able to tell who's in what category by their numbers. If they're in green, they're in pro. If they're in red, they're in am. They're on the left-hand side. But I would say perfect conditions to start off with qualifying here, Kevin.
Yeah, as you say, 32 degrees is, yeah, sort of in the Goldilocks zone. It's not so hot that it's unpleasant, but it does still require a little bit of tyre management. Of course, these iRacing tyres are always quite sensitive to temperature, especially the surface temps, so that's going to be the key management point for these guys. But in qualifying, you've got to find that really fine balance between really pushing the limit to get all that lap time out of it, but not pushing the tyre too hard. All it takes is a little bit too hard on the brakes, micro little lock up, a little too much steering lock, a bit of a slide, and the next couple corners could be really difficult for you.
Yeah, it's a case of fine-tune and balance. We focus with Andreas Friedrich here, heading over towards the line in the number 19, a 147.2, but the lap didn't count. Kettle Larsen only 14th then, and 0.8 of a second off. James Barry goes to 7th. Christoph Lipp is 7th. This is his brother, Sebastian Lipp, though, making the charge up for the line with 3:48 left on the clock. We'll see what this is going to be over the line. That's in the 44s then. So I would say not necessarily the quickest lap in the world, but it is just trying to gear up for that next attempt. And sometimes you'll see that it takes a couple laps to get the tyres where you want. That's not a line you want there through the Arrabbiata corners for Mehmet Akash.
Yeah, it's tough for him there. Of course, iRacing have updated the gravel over the last couple of years to make it, significantly more realistic. So going through the gravel, of course, it doesn't validate the lap time, but it does also slow you down. So that's something they're going to have to watch for in the race. But yeah, these qualifying laps are not going to be easy to hit. Obviously, you can set up out that last corner. A couple of the drivers were actually doing that. They're going quite wide on the entry to the last corner to try and set up for the next lap. Here you can see Gullickson. He's going quite wide there as well. I'm not sure if that's the intended line or if they're setting up. I think with these cars, you might want to go quite wide just with how they sort of interact with the circuit. But we'll see what kind of lap time is going to hit across the line.
Yep, so here will be, I believe, a setup attempt with a 43.3, a late abandon of the lap, but keeping the temperature in the tyres there was Horvath Mulekson out there trying to do what he could. James Barry still hoping car number 10 has something to go with. Alfredo Mallow, who has been in sim racing for well over a decade, very quick when it came to a Skip Barber back in the 2K World Cup days on RaceSpotTV, a 42.2. over the line, or a 3:01 it will be classified as there for James Barry. So enough to stay third, just ahead then of Kim Andre Björklund there. So that was enough to just hold the margin for a time being. For Sim Racing Norway / Chapter X, it seems like at the moment everyone is just getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Luke Crowley in full control of the AM standing at the moment in 10th position. He's qualifying wonderfully, but everyone is finding that improvement right when they need it, Kevin.
Yeah, the track will slowly be rubbering up here during this session as well, so a little bit of extra rubber going down will benefit the grip slightly, and of course as the session goes on these guys will start to settle in a little bit. It's very rare that the first laps out there are going to be the quickest of the whole session unless the weather conditions are really going to change. So if you've got a session like this where you have got multiple attempts, it is really nice to where you can slowly kind of build yourself up into the qualifying lap rather than what you typically see at the very top esports level of the one and done format.
Sally Reitinen on the bottom of your screen right now. Kim Andre Björklund on the top, 88 and 83. They are looking for times. Reitinen currently 9th and half a second off the pace. Peter Avanier can only get himself within 0.6 of a second over the line then. We focus then, and Sally Reitinen up to 8th place with that effort of a 42.404. Teve Ryan goes to 7th, but can Björklund jump on up even higher? That looks like a 0.4, and that one won't work then on that final lap of 10. So not quite there. Larsen only 13th out there at the moment, and it looks like a handful of laps are left to try and get to the line. Once the clock hits 0, there's no more improvement. So drivers like Sebastian Lipp can't improve. Mika Hulkkonen down to pit lane. Then you've got Severin Sjostro there. So can Sjostro get anything over the line late? A 44.2. And I think it's going to be a bit late here for this car going through the Arrabbiata corners as Christoph Lipp late will jump this one into the top 5 right at the 11th hour as qualifying brings itself to a close, and a strong qualifying out there as they will all grid into the same heat here. So keep this in note that drivers will be looking for a top 7 position from these races. 45 minutes start off heat number 1. It will be Alfredo Malo who will have the control of the field then. He's on a 141.987. He will have Horvan Mulekson alongside for company then in second, with Sebastian Lip third and Franek Sikorsky fourth. Directly behind him on the grid for the in at Lip train is Christoph Lip, with James Barry then lining up in 6th. Then it is Kim Andre Björklund and Christopher Teverayan there in 8th position. Andreas Friedrich and Sally Reitinen make up your top 10. You've then got Luke Crowley in 11th, and for Inerti Racing Team, Jorge Gonzaga, the Portuguese driver, there in 12th, with Peter Avani and Kettle Larsen there for IGL Coatings and Sander Traffic Scholar. You've then got Christian Emmanuel and Dennis Kyriakopoulos 15th and 16th. Eric Benson will start for Team Slow-Mo in 17th, with Lars Erik Friedland there in 28th. There's Robert Butter in 19th, and Mika Hulkkonen in 20th. Gabriel Berger and Menno de Graaf then on row 11, with Byron Crawford and Yevon Seiko there in 24th. Gianluca Elia is 25th for 11/10 Racing, with Erling Ulrichsen in 26th. Then it's Severin Schuster in 27th, and then Erling Stensrud in 28th. You then got Paolo Breme in 29th and Stefan Melis in 30th. Your 31st driver for Prism Motorsport is Mehmet Berat Akash, who could not set a time out there, as they are all looking for the run to San Donato Corner. Turn number 1 out here on track. Everybody now gets themselves ready and up onto the grid. A new season starts in the Radical Sim Racing European Championships, and so who puts 45 minutes on the board and says they've got what they need? We're underway. Slow start from the second row from Franek Sikorsky. Really bogged down and had a poor run of things as he went up the hill. Ulrichsen looking for a chance then to go up into the race lead, fighting Alfredo Malo for position, working up into San Donato, but it is Malo the Spaniard who holds his ground and does well. The lips together, Sebastian and Christoph third and fourth, and Björklund has had a great start as well. He's up to 5th as they run through the Poggio Secco.
That was the perfect start there for Malo. He had a strong qualifying, of course, and then dominated the start there, defended the inside, held position, absolutely perfect. He's just got to try and gap these guys as much as possible, try and use that pace that we saw in qualifying to get a bit of a gap before we get back round to that main straight. That's going to be the main area that we're going to be focused on the entire day. There's going to be that big main straight with the braking down and towards turn number 1.
Yep, so Friedland is going to be the one who will be jumping on through. So I would turn around and say this is going to be a really, really tough start for those who are thinking about today and going, right, I really needed a good run and it's making my job very, very difficult out there in the start of this. So I would say if you're on the back foot now, you're going to need to try and conserve yourself for what will be more racing to come here, as this will be a long old slog for those who will have to do potentially 4 races in a day to get themselves the points that they want. This is what happened to Friedland out of the Poggio Secco, catches up on the curb, and this car is so light it can snap about in a hurry.
Yeah, it really doesn't take much, although they do have quite a bit of downforce. That the overall lack of weight means that it's just so easy to unsettle it. And of course, these things do have quite a bit of power to them as well. When that turbo really does spool up, they're not easy to drive. Although they have got a lot of downforce, as mentioned, the rear grip it doesn't just come for free. You've really got to manage things. So yeah, it's a shame to see, but it's easy to happen. Unfortunately, there's more racing ahead, so there's still a chance for recovery. But out front, Malo is maintaining a pretty comfortable gap now. He's got just over half a second. So yeah, perfect start for Malo. It's just going to be a case of controlling things as best he can.
Luke Crowley was looking to take his first of 2 mandatory pit stops. He was speeding on the lane as he hit the line, so he's going to have to sit there for an extra, I would say, 40 seconds out there before he gets himself back going again. A real shame for him. He was leading comfortably his category out there, and he will be now eyeing up what he can do. Sikorsky, though, currently is the best AM out there as things currently stand. So he's there in 7th place and is really trying to showcase what he's got. And the next nearest driver is currently in 16th in that category. So it feels like it's a little bit of chalk and cheese at the moment in terms of the fortunes of the AMs out there at this stage in time. Root currently is trying to hold on desperately with Andreas Friedrich here. Peter Avagny on the wrong side of it, so 7 on the clearance at the moment. Mallow leading, then you've got Mulixen. The lips are there of Sebastian Christoph, Björklund 5th, Barry 6th, and Franek Sikorsky right now, the bubble man as it stands in Heat 1.
Yeah, he's in a really great position for an AM driver. He's got a bunch of cars between him and 2nd place in class, so he can afford to not really have to take too many risks here. He can sit in this train, sit comfortably, and try and minimise the pressure that he's moved under from behind, obviously by using the slipstream. But I think what we're seeing at the moment is a bit of a slipstream train starting to form. So Gulson is closing the gap to Mallow down that main straight as expected, but he's just not able to stay close enough through the rest of the lap to really capitalise on it. So everyone in this train is going to be sort of looking at Gullickson and saying, come on, get up there, make a move, sort of back things up a little bit, give us an opportunity, because as it stands right now, everyone's a little bit stuck.
Yeah, this is what you're going to have to find. It is very tough to overtake around this place until you get to the main straight. Out of Bucine and up the hill over towards San Donato, out of Savelli, and now through the Arrabbiata corners. These are corners that test every single car and every single driver. You want to try and be as flat as possible through here, but the sheer desire of cars to understeer going through Arrabbiata, Kevin, is very difficult. That's a little wide there by Björklund over at Scarperia corner then, so that really does open up the sense of you blink slightly wrong in one corner, you'll lose a couple tenths of a second. A train like this, you'll want to catch. Now, something's happened here for Sally Raitanen up the hill. Is this with Avagny? Oh, straight into the back under braking there at San Donato. That's a massive accident. A lot of energy gets unloaded there.
Yeah, I think he's just mistimed the braking a little bit. I'm not sure if the car in front braked a little bit earlier, if he's braked too late. But yeah, that is far from ideal. We could be seeing race control getting involved in that one.
Yeah, we very much could, and that is going to be a huge problem out there to try and navigate through with the damage. They've got the fast repairs, so it's not the end of the world, but obviously you're going to have to try and do everything you can to fight back. Christoph Lipp then watching the front four. James Barry, oh, Björklund's had a moment behind. We've just missed it, and Sikorsky, I think, almost picks up the run and does pick up the run, so he's up now to 6th position, and that leaves Teverayan now on the bubble trying to get in through Heat 1 as it stands, so that's going to be a lot of fight. You've also got Kit Larson back there in a scrap with Christian Emmanuel, who's representing Nigeria out there, and that's a pass that is done to Larson up to 11th, so there's a lot of different moves and pieces trying to be sorted. There is Kettle Larson, who on his day can be up there and fighting with the very best. Here's another look then at Menno de Graaf, who runs himself into trouble. So you can see he's trying to look down the inside, and Luco, that's a lot of miscommunication.
Yeah, it looked like the car in front of de Graaf there was just trying to, it was a little bit offline through the left. He was trying to get back over to line himself up for the right-hander, and obviously he's had to scrub off speed to do that, and it's just caused a coming together there, which is unfortunate. But what I did notice is when Kjetil Larsen was battling there with Christian Emmanuel, they've lost a significant amount of time. They cannot go side by side through those chicanes at the start of the lap. You just lose so much time because you have to be so precise. As we see a look up the inside here, is that, yeah, it's the Ferrin having a look up the inside. So what they're going to have to do here is try and follow the train in front, which is obviously going to be tough. So they move you can see the train moving to the left-hand side. That's going to help Ferrin. But they're going to move back over to the right naturally, which is probably going to keep these guys stuck side by side. It's going to be a case of the late breakers.
Yeah, Tevye Ryan's going to win that one out, and so Christopher will move into 7th, and Kim-Andre Björklund then is on the wrong side of it. James Barry has seen Franek Sikorsky go through, but they're at 1.2 seconds now, and how many times have we seen it over the course of races in all categories, Kevin, where you see the rubber band of slipstream snap, and suddenly a 1 second, 1.5 second gap in about 15 minutes time becomes 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. The slipstream is so beneficial, especially on a circuit like this where you are getting a nice healthy toe down the main straight, and once that group starts to fragment, split up, it typically snowballs, because the guys in 2nd, 3rd and Q can see that the gap is increasing, and of course the racer mindset is they always think they're going to be quicker than the guy ahead of them just because they get slipstream, but then you start scrapping, and then all of a sudden, as you say, it ends up being 5-6 seconds. So you can see this quite often at Daytona. You see this a lot with the specifically GT3 stuff, where they do stay quite condensed on through the oval sections, and then it does start to fragment, and that is really when all chaos tends to ensue. So yeah, for these guys, if you're just sitting in the queue, sitting in line, at this point it's probably going to be the best idea to try and save a little bit of fuel. Obviously, 2 pit stops, so if you can save time in both stops with having to take less fuel, then that is going to be the optimal way to try and get across a gap. If you do lose slipstream but you can save fuel, you might be able to get back to that train that you've lost just purely by having less fuel to take at the pit stop.
And a lot of these drivers will take a look at this opening stint here, Kevin, and they'll be probably thinking, well, I'd love to take this one as far as I possibly can. One of the reasons why is a light racing car is a fast racing car.
Yeah, exactly, and with the compounded tyre that we have, it doesn't tend to fall off too much here. It's as the fuel drops out, the tyres can actually hang on fairly well. So yeah, as you say, the overcut will be the desired strategy. If you can get an extra lap out of it, that would be great. But of course, it is all dependent on your sole pace. If you feel that you're getting pulled along a little bit by the slipstream, then you might just want to copy what everyone else does, just in the hopes that you come back out the pits and you can continue to be towed along. But if you feel like you've got a pace advantage, being able to go that extra lap and then give it 100% on the end lap and really push it can be make or break. As I say, you can go for being in that second train and you've lost touch with the front train. You can potentially bridge that gap just by taking that extra lap out on track and having another lap on light fuel.
A lot of work here for Corbin Mulekson here as Sebastian Lipp is there in 3rd position, just looking to stalk his prey at this point in time. Alfredo Malo has pulled out a good 3/4 tenths of a second over the course of this lap, and this is what you've got to start worrying about. When he gets to 8 tenths, 9 tenths, the moment it psychologically ticks over a second, you know as a racing driver, you can get into trouble, and this is where Mulekson needs as much drive as possible back up the hill, needs to start prioritising the exit a little bit more and understanding potentially maybe, Kevin, if you break outside of a second of the car in front, would that be a good tactical time to take your first pit stop?
It could potentially. It all really depends on if you've got a window to box into. So providing that you've done your research and you know what your pit delta is looking like depending on what refuel you're going to take, then if you've got a gap to pit into, then yeah, it's worth a shot, because if the guy ahead is braking draft on you anyway, chances are he's going to continue to pull away from you, so you might as well try something different. But just to touch on the psychological thing, that is one of the most difficult parts as a racer, is when you're at a track where slipstream is pretty paramount, like this place. As soon as you say it gets to over 7 or 8 tenths, psychologically you think, right, I haven't got any mistakes left. I either need him to make a mistake, or I need to just keep on doing what I'm doing and hope that every single lap I pull a tenth on the straight and I can get back within 0.3, 0.4, which is the sort of comfort zone. But yeah, for Gullickson here, it's still around about 8.5 tenths. It's tricky. He cannot, if he has one lockup, runs wide somewhere, has a bit of a snap and has to correct, that could be all it takes for him to lose draft, and then all of a sudden he's got the Lipp brothers right behind him who can take advantage. And of course, with them being brothers, they can work together as well, which is, yeah, double trouble, so to say.
Yeah, we've seen it so often in racing circles. For example, you've got Lewis Hamilton and his brother, his brother Nicholas out there. He's his dad. You've got Michael and Ralf Schumacher, for example, that comes to mind. Racing in that sort of sense and having someone that you know very intimately to help you out. It's almost like having a sixth sense connection. It's so easy to understand what the driver in front is going to do. do, because you've raced each other pretty much all your life. It is that simple of an understanding. Sikorsky had a wild moment at turn 3, which was the Poggio Secco, had a massive slide out on the exit, had to fight it, hasn't lost a place, but critically, it's now formed this second pack here, which is sort of in between two. James Barry staying with it, but Björklund, Teve Ryan, and Andreas Friedrich with Peter Avani on the back. These four could very easily make this a group of 6 that are fighting in and around the transfer at the moment, which Björklund currently holds.
Yeah, they'll be spurred on by the fact that it is an AM at the front of this queue, so they'll be hoping that there'll be some kind of tyre fall off or mistake in the pits or something for Sikorsky, or a little bit of caving under pressure that you might not see from the pros. So these guys just need to bide their time and keep on banging in good laps, and eventually they will get there. There's still 32 minutes left, so there's absolutely no major rush here, but the gap, I'm just keeping a bit of an eye on that gap behind from Malo. It creeped up to just over 9/10ths, and it's hovering around there at the minute. He lost a little bit of time on the last lap. I think it was around 7/10ths coming through turn number 1, but it's gradually crept out again. So yeah, Malo's doing a great job out front to keep his tyres on it. Through the tight and twisty stuff, he's able to extend the gap back out, so he's almost breaking even right now. Just needs to keep doing what he's doing. But yeah, for Sikorsky, this is a scary scenario. You're the only AM up there, surrounded by a bunch of pros. You're in the top 7 at the moment, which is where you obviously want to be, but there's a bunch of cars breathing down his neck. But I think it's been a bit of a mistake from Björklund. He's just over 1.1 seconds back, so they've got a bit of breathing room. It's not full panic stations yet, but with how long there is left in the race, it's not going to be easy for Sikorsky to hold on. As we see Melis going wide, does he rejoin safely? Just about.
Locked inside front there, and very easy to do back up the hill, as there goes the move from Teve Ryan and Friedrich. Friedrich trying to get around, doesn't quite manage the pass at San Donato through the Poggio Secco at turn 3. They will now dive over here at the highest section of the circuit, now over towards Materazzi corner, turn 4, and the Borgo San Lorenzo at turn 5. And you set yourself up now on this next run, as we'll go further back to Kettle Larson's group and co, as we'll actually stay with the likes of Teve Ryan and Björklund down through Casanova and Cervelli, which is, I think, the iconic corners of this circuit. The outside run of this track is simply magnificent.
Yeah, it's the undulation changes, the long flowing corners. It's all about carrying the most minimum speed you possibly can. The tyres are screaming by this point in the lap, but you've still got another 2 sectors of tight and twisty stuff to come. So yeah, it's such a fun circuit to hot lap around here. As I mentioned, the elevation change, the undulations, the positive camber, the off camber corners, it's so tough to get right, but it's one of those ones that when you do it, it's up there with some of the most satisfying corners in the world.
Yeah, this is a very satisfying circuit to go out there and race. There was a reason through the COVID times that Formula Racing found itself here, and quite often, and honestly, I think it's a real shame that it hasn't come back in that regard. Teve Ryan, though, still trying to work her way up into the top 7. In comes the Lipp brothers, Sebastian and Christoph. They were just starting to struggle a little bit there, Kevin, as they were at risk of falling outside of a second. What they've done is they've practically marooned Barry and Sikorsky.
Yeah, they must have seen a gap in the pit window, and they've decided that now's the opportunity to take it, get a bit of clean air, try and have a positive few laps coming out the pits. They're not stopped for long, obviously, with this being a 2-stop race. It's not huge, but the good news for them is they do come out still connected, but there's a bit of traffic coming past there on the exit as they come out. It'll be interesting to see if they have got clean airs. Here you can see Björklund has closed the gap to Teve Ryan, and yeah, this is going to be a battle to try and get across. He needs to try and get past Teve Ryan as soon as possible to try and get after Sikorsky, who I believe has he been overtaken by James Barry.
He has, and so that's a change. And critically here, Christoph Lipp has come out. There's an AM in the middle of them, which is Severin Shustra there. So that is going to be a huge bit of trouble right now for the likes of Christoph Lipp, who's got to get through. We're on board with Björklund at this point in time, with Teve Ryan going through Pelagio and now up the hill in towards Corontaio corner, which can be a late overtaking place. In these cars, I don't think you build enough of an advantage to make that happen. Christoph Lipp has finally got his pass, but it will have cost him quite a bit of time, over a second to Sebastian Lipp now, and that was the disaster that you don't want out there as we focus with Björklund. The last thing you want is traffic to try and get by that will have every license to fight you because it is for position.
Yeah, this is the problem when you try and do an undercut on a field of this size. Although we haven't been racing for long, with 31 cars, just the natural field spread is quite significant. So it's a massive, massive gamble to try and undercut everyone when you know you've got 30-odd cars behind you that you can potentially come out into. So traditionally, the rule of thumb, for me anyways, when I'm racing, is if you're at the front, you want to try and go longer than all the guys in the mid-pack to the back of the pack. You want to make sure that you're overcutting those guys so that when they box, it frees up a window for you, and it might leave you a lap to undercut at most. In worst case scenario, you just box at the same time as the guy that you're racing and try and get the move done on track. But yeah, you always want to try and go longer than the guys at the back of the pack, because you know, one, that they haven't got the pace, and two, there's a large potential for you to pick up damage or alternatively DNF completely trying to battle your way back through.
Now, I am getting word here, just looking at the race details in Sim, that it will be, the Heat 2 is skipped as it is currently stood, but I'm not sure whether it will take the 7 into the feature or whether it will go at 14 into the feature. So there might be a case where we end up with 8, it might be a case we end up with 15. If it does end up with 8, I wouldn't be shocked to see a second server jump up in that regard. So for the moment, Alfredo Malo for the SRP Racing team, leading out front with Håvard Mugello, who was almost close to winning, on Friday night when we had the run of officials going through the Radical Cup. As there goes Franek Sikorsky looking to make his first stop of the race. He's down then on the marks in the Project 91 Racing team car, looking to get his run forward at this point in time. But Mugello knows how to win, so does Alfredo Malo. Franek Sikorsky, what a team Project 91 is actually at the moment. They've got some amazing drivers in there. For example, Matt Caruana.
Yeah, they're having a good run of things at the minute, and Sikorsky will be very, very happy with that first stint. He held position, he didn't get completely mugged by all the rest of the pro drivers. He stood his ground and proved that he's got the pace to compete right up at the front, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay in the top 5 after the pit cycle has finished. But again, it's all going to come down to traffic. It's whether these guys have done the math. There's a couple cars in front of him, so this isn't ideal. Ideally for Malo, he's just got to go as long as he possibly can, run that tank dry, and try and overcut all of these guys in the mid-pack, because this is just not going to be a good strategy for these guys having to come through the traffic.
Yeah, Severin Shostor there just in front. Then Paolo Bremer is also in that place. Wide then is going to go Shostor, and that will open up the chance then for Sikorsky down the hill, trying to lunge for it at the inside at Casanova. Doesn't quite get the line, and then we'll get a bucket of dirty air to get chucked across. There's enough out then from this Radical, and Radicals as a car, they're not meant to form classes with other different cars out there. Imagine it as the ultimate track day car.
Oh, big send up the inside. That's a great move from Sikorsky, and that's on a pro driver, bear in mind. So yeah, a fantastic move there from Sikorsky, but look at the time he's lost to the car ahead. These two cars that he was fighting amongst were side by side into T1, so you can see just how much time you lose in only a handful of corners as Mugello's hit the pit road before Malo.
Yep, so that is a really interesting fact. You'd expect him to have saved a bit of fuel here, being stuck behind, so deciding to make that call with Mehmet Vera Arkush as well in the pits, and Byron Crawford. 9.6 seconds on the stop. That's long compared to everyone that we've seen so far. As we'll take a look, Mugello's up to speed, but through has gone Gianluca Elia. You've also got Friedland who's gone through, De Graaf has gone by, and Christoph Lipp. Well, after all of that, he's going to be right on the back critically as they have sat. They are going to be very happy with what they've done. Sebastian Lipp would have gone through, you maybe would have argued, but he's in for his second stop already here in this race. So that, I think, is going to be that, and it looks like he's in trouble.
Something's gone wrong. Yeah, something's gone wrong for Sebastian Lipp. That's not gone well for him at all. His race has gone from bad to worse.
Well, it didn't look like he'd made any contact or anything. I think he's been caught speeding on the lane, and he realizes that that is the toughest tell that he has done out there in this one. He wanted to make this one happen, and he realizes very quickly as he goes on through that his points are going to hurt out there as he's gone through. I actually think what he's done there, and he's hit the line, he's done exactly what he's needed to, so he's made the mark. I just think he's forgotten to engage his pit limiter.
It's so tough. In iRacing, it's very common to see drivers flicking the pit limiter off just to carry an extra 0.5 of a kilometre an hour down the pit lane. But yeah, if you get your sequencing all wrong, where you hit the brakes, you turn the limiter on, you get back on throttle, and then you flick it back off again. If you get that sequencing wrong, your brain is just so used to having it in a specific way, and if you've done something marginally wrong, it's so easy to just slam on the throttle again, thinking that it's on, and it's not. And I can tell you, I've done it myself. It is a very empty feeling.
Yeah, you feel a bit hollow after you've done that, and you know that nothing, you know, it's as bad as a cold shower sometimes when you get yourself in that sort of position. A slew of pit stops then go on through as Christian Emmanuel here is going to pick up quite a few. Eric Benson there, Dennis Kyriakopoulos, then he goes by, so they're back out onto run, and they'll be looking around at it. There's Jorge Gonzaga as well, who sits in 15th position for a Nerty Racing team and is really trying to find a way through at this moment in time on what eventually will be a sister car in front.
Yeah, not going to get any moves made in this section of track here unless you're incredibly brave. But yeah, right now it's just going to be a case of battling the dirty air down through the best section of the circuit right here, down through this downhill right-hander, into the downhill left, feel the car compress into the circuit, get a ton of rotation out of nowhere, and then start working your way back up the hill. It's such a fun sequence of corners, but when you add dirt air into the equation, it goes from being some of the most fun to some of the most difficult.
Oh, we got side by side down the pit lane now. Björklund has got the line on Andreas Friedrich then for position, and so they are going to have a scrap to get into line. Now, because they're out of the transit lane here, Kevin, they can ghost.
Yeah, see, I always like the strategy of if you are side by side and you're on the side closest to the pit boxes, I'd always stay in the fast lane and just box the other driver out. So if they've got to pit before you, if their box is closer to the start of the pit lane than yours, then you can just leave them to hang to dry out there and force them to brake. But yeah, it's I'm quite thankful personally that it isn't a collidable zone in there, because there would have been so many accidents for me over the years in endurance events trying to get in and out of pit boxes amongst other GT3s, GTDs and such.
James Barry has had a shockingly long stop as we saw the side-by-side there. Gabriel Berger also jumping in. So Mallow has retained the lead, but look at his margin right now. He's got 5.5 seconds at this point. Mulekson then in second is going to be really hurting then from that. He's in that scrap now with Christoph Lipp. And these drivers all have to turn around and realise this isn't for points, this is for placement.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the gap that Mallow has, because that gap alone is not just from the overcut. So I'd be interested to see how he split his stints up, whether he's going to go long, short, long, or he's sort of going to split the last two stints in half. I think for me, if I was in Mallow's position, I'd like to go long, long, and then short at the end. But he might have the luxury, if he's seen that Mulekson came out into traffic, and he's got the luxury to sort of play around with it a little bit and just give himself the absolute fastest strategy with the refuel and carrying as light a car for as long as possible.
Yeah, and so if you can get a light car, you can certainly make some hay while the sun is shining, as Mulekson and Lipp then make their way over towards Bussing Corner and look to try and drive off of the exit for that long climb up the hill that ends the lap. Wide line then, pivot yourself back into tow, get the climb up the hill will Christoph Lipp, and this is where he will get the advantage over 255 kilometers an hour, almost about 7 or 8 kilometers an hour difference up the hill, and that really exacerbates on this main front stretch. Effectively, if you're within a quarter of a second, you've got almost a free ticket to a pass up at San Donato.
Yeah, 100%, and with the last corner being relatively high speed, or relatively medium speed I should say, your exit speed is quite high, so you get that slipstream effect is a bit stronger earlier in the straight as well, so that's more beneficial. If you were coming out of a really low speed corner, then obviously it takes time for that slipstream effect to build up as the car's punching becomes bigger, so it does make overtaking a little bit easier, but then of course you do have more dirt air as well, so it's it gives and takes from you, does the slipstream effect. But yeah, for Christoph Lipp now, I'd be interested to know actually what the fuel loads are looking like at this point in the race, because obviously, as I said, that there could be guys who are going for a long middle stint, there could be guys who are going for a very short one. Obviously, Christoph Lipp boxed significantly earlier than Mugello, so there's a chance that at this current stage in the stint, he's on less fuel, and that could be why you see the gap increasing so much, and you could see, yeah, you could see Lipp coming back in within the next couple of minutes to refuel for his last stop.
Yeah, we're only 17.5 minutes away from the end of this race. There is a question that you could go 15, 15, 15 with it, or that maybe you could even turn around and say, well, it's 20, 20, and what, 5 at the end would be an absolute steal for many out there. We saw some even come in as early as lap 1. You could, if you wanted to try and manage the fuel, take it as far as you possibly can, but no takers then from second, third, or fourth at the moment. Friedrich then in 6th. Your top 15 currently has Yevhen Seiko currently as the driver who is on the margin at the moment, the Ukrainian. Now this is going to be a little replay down the hill for Stefan Meli, who again outbrakes himself there. I wonder if he switched off for half a second and realised, oh, hang on a minute, I've just missed my braking zone. It's not often you see a car go that far into the gravel at Casanova.
Yeah, he's definitely either just been blindsided where he couldn't see the braking point, or he's just had a little bit of a zone out there for a second. It's been a rough day for him. That's the second time we've seen him off in the kitty litter, so it's not been, yeah, it's not been ideal for him. But it's interesting to see this battle continue to grow really for Christoph Lipp. He's gradually increasing the gap to Mugello throughout the infield, and Mugello's only really hanging on for the slipstream. So I'd give it 2-3 laps at most, I think, before Christopher Lipp's back in the pit lane for that last stop. And of course, the big thing for him is going to be trying to spot a gap, using that F3 box, that relative, to try and spot a gap for him to box into, to where he's not going to get caught in traffic again, and could potentially bridge that gap to Alfredo Malo if he's lucky.
Well, you look at the difference here. Do you think, Kevin, that the difference is in the fuel weight between them? Because if Mugello's holding a heavier car right now, he could have anything in a car that is so dependent on being lightweight, anywhere upwards of 30 kilograms worth of ballast just on trying to get the car around.
I think it's definitely possible. I'm not sure it's going to be, obviously 30 would probably be like the worst case scenario. It's probably more 10, 15 kg or so, but of course Christoph Lipp did box earlier, so he's probably taking a similar amount of fuel to Mugello. He's just offset by 4 or 5 laps. So yeah, it's clear in the first stint Lipp did not have this pace advantage over Mugello, and now all of a sudden he does. So I think either he's settled himself in and he's now shown what his pace is really like. He was just sort of taking it easy in that first stint, or it is some kind of fuel load difference between the two. So yeah, I think the end of this lap, end of next, we might see him in. If he goes any longer than that, then he's just driving the wheels off that thing.
Yevhen Seiko into the pits in the number 70 car. That will be his final stop of the day. It will promote Gabriel Berger then up to the magic transfer spot 15, but remember it's 14 that go through as far as we understand the rule book. Dennis Kiriakopoulos has that for the time being with a 7-second margin over the AM. Of course, there is that consolation race coming along, which will get one car in, and that will be a very, very short race coming up for that. And you turn around and say, well, how tough do you want it to be? You're asking drivers in this first heat here, Kevin, to go out there and show what your long game speed is. Normally you see that it's the feature that's the longest out there. It's a 15-minute consolation to a 20-minute feature. So you're asking the drivers to score the points, go out there and be the quickest, but we want you to go through the gauntlet and try and earn it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit inverted to what you typically expect to see. You normally have a bit of a sprint race at the start after qualifying, as we see. Is that Christoph Lipp dive into pit road? Yep. I break that one well. I'm definitely not good at maths, but I've got that one right.
Yeah, of course, that is a very good stop call then, and we know that Christoph Lipp was early in, so had to be early in again, even if it was a representative even amount. And I think right now you see the top of the Mugello pit building. It's very much the same as the livery. We know who they're all supporting up there at the moment, as Christoph Lipp taking 7, 8, 9.2 in the box and looking to get the clearance away and back up to speed. He will fall outside of the top 14 for the moment, but again, he'll have to go by drivers like Akash and Crawford and Hulkinen and Botta, and also as well in that Gabriel Berger. That is a 5-car train of AMs and pros that you really wouldn't want to have that much of a tussle with. You'd like to get through that cleanly.
I bet right now he is begging that these guys are going to be into the pits within the next lap or two. If he has to come through these guys, that is going to be race over, because what he's also got to contend with is that Mugello is going to have a shorter final stop because he is going longer. So he's got to try and make that difference up right now, as we see a different Mugello going off. Oh, he's completely lost it. Kept out the barrier, just.
Early Henrik Mugello there, who just about got on the binders. That's coming out of the second of the Arrabbiata corners and up the hill over to Scarperia, which you don't see a car go wide at the second part of the first. Leader in, so we saw that they build a gap, Alfredo Malo, he did, of about 5 seconds, so 4-second advantage from the first stop. Is this where, Kevin, he pays back the Pied Piper?
I think so, yeah. He's definitely gone for the longest first stint possible and then gone for a shorter middle stint to try and break that slipstream and get himself some clean air and use the pace advantage that he knows he has. So, yeah, this will be interesting to see how it plays out. Mugello is going to have the shortest final stop of any of the top 3. So that does explain the 5-second gap that he magically pulled out. But yeah, just looking further back, Christoph Lipp, I'm interested to see what kind of progress he's making. Is he getting caught in traffic, or has he still got a bit of clean air to drive into? Because that's going to be the big difference. As I say, he's got to make up maybe 1 or 2 seconds on track right now to offset the less fuel that Mugello is going to have to take in this final stop.
Well, he is about half a straight behind Alfredo Malo, who is heading his way to Materazzi corner, and Lipp is only just going through. Then at turn 3, the Poggio Secco. So that's the difference then between them on circuit, and there's a lot. Now, there's another case of side by. Oh, Hulkinen getting so close. There was Mika trying to get himself in, and that's what you get with a car in front. That was Botta pitting just in front, and on pit lane, everyone loves having a fresh, a clean and open pit lane to attack with. That's why we talk about track position coming into the pits. You get caught behind someone slightly slower, you might find yourself running up the back of one of them.
It's so easy to do because you're decelerating so hard, and the pit speed limit is so slow compared to the rest of the circuit. So, yeah, that's why you always try and have a pit entry that's wide enough for 2 cars so that you can take avoiding action and potentially make an overtake action if you do get a good enough pit in. As we see another bunch of cars dive towards pit lane, but Mugello stays out. He's still going with only 10 minutes to go.
Kevin Ryan, who is behind him, in, as is Friedrich and Sikorsky. Peter Avagny also into pit lane with Christian Emmanuel and Eric Benson all making the stops. You can hear the engine trying to spool up and go, and there is the launch from Teve Ryan, who will see go by Alfredo Malo. But now the question being, where is Christoph Lipp? By comparison here, Lipp is only just coming up to speed. There he's gone on the left-hand side. Sikorsky in a big scrap, couldn't quite get there. And this is going to be close actually at the top then at San Donato. Teve Ryan has come from nowhere really in this field, and suddenly he's ahead of Christoph Lipp, and that is not what the doctor ordered. That's the wrong car they were going to see. And there's a penalty on pit exit for Christian Emmanuel, who'll have to come back in.
That's a complete disaster. An absolute disaster. You cannot be doing that on your last pit stop of the race, especially when you were sitting comfortably in the top 15. That is an absolute disaster for him. I believe he's in the top 15 anyway. But yeah, it's interesting to see Teve Ryan. He's really capitalised on the pit strategy here. He's played an absolute blinder. He's got out 6/10 ahead of Christoph Lipp, who, yeah, is probably going to have had the longest final stop of anyone in that front group, and that's just because they boxed so early in the stint 1. That he's having to pay back the difference in every other pit stop that he's had to make, and of course on the outlaps that he's had traffic as well. So the strategy definitely needs a little bit of work. The pace has not been the problem for Christoph Lipp. He's shown he's a good pace as Mugello has finally hit pit road.
Which means James Barry now is one of the latest to come in. So Mugello will feel like he's got a good stop underneath him. He'll now look and try and get maybe 6 seconds will be the call as he goes through also goes Kim-Andre Björklund. Kjetil Larsen then going through. George Gonzaga is also going to go by. Dennis Kiriakopoulos too, and he's already off then. 7.4 seconds. Where is he compared to Alfredo Malo? He's now gone up off the distance, but as he's up to speed, Tevarayan was 1.9 seconds the difference, and now it's going to get a case of you've got to pass the blue commitment cone and into turn one. He's clear by that same margin of about 2 seconds. I think that's just telling you how quick Alfredo Malo is at pure pace.
Yeah, he's not worried about what pit strategy everyone else is on. He's just absolutely put the pedal to the metal and dropped everyone. He's not had to worry too much about the strategy. He's just run his own race. He's not had to battle anyone outside of lap 1, turn 1. And he's just controlled this perfectly. So at this point for him, he's got 7.2 seconds out back. Absolutely no risk. He knows these guys are going to be boxing out the way of him very, very soon. As we can see, Christian Emmanuel serving his penalty on pit lane there.
Cardinal sin, absolute cardinal sin there, and that is going to sting as it will take him to the consolation race by comparison. Malo now trying to get around the car. This is full position here. Dennis Kiriakopoulos, the Swiss driver, out there at the moment in the number 34. This is the only real pitfall that you'd have as a driver who has dominated the lead in a 2-stop race like this one. Cars that have not yet pitted, you could tangle up over. You've just got to find a clean and effective pass around to maintain your order.
Yeah, he's just got to stay patient, right? He knows these guys are still need to box again, so there's no reason to go send one up the inside. You've got 7 seconds out back. It's now dropped to 6.6, so you can see he's lost a good 6 to 8, 10, something like that on this past lap. So yeah, he is losing time. This looks like an opportunity for him to get to have done nice and cleanly, as he should be let past here. I don't think these guys will be too interested in battling him, as they're not racing directly. So he's not backed out on the brakes, but he has given him the inside. So Alfredo Malo now, he's got a nice gap out front. He can just run his own race for the last 6 minutes, providing he doesn't have an absolute shocker. He's got this race sewn up.
He's a fantastic driver, Alfredo Malo. He raced around with legends like Philippe Laibert and Arjen de Freitas in the 2K World Cup, the Enzo Canters, the Benny Simonsons out there of the world in iRacing. He was one of those drivers who could come in any given Sunday night and go and find a battle for the victory. At the moment, Arkush in the bubble, or sees Botta in the bubble at the moment, as they are changing for that 14th place, and that is critical here with Gabriel Berger down the inside. So there's your leader right now, net at the moment. So we expect James Barry and Kim-Andre Björklund to make their stops, but for the moment, sitting on 14th place is going to be those drivers who are happy. That's the difference. There's James Barry. There's the look at who's made stops and who's not. And really, it's them and one more out there in the back that haven't made their stops. And they can't go too much longer out there. They're down to 5 minutes to go here in this race. So you turn around and say, what, 5 minutes to go? You're doing a minute 42s out there. That's going to leave them 3 to 4 laps left in this one. Björklund speeding on the lane. You saw the plume of smoke in the background.
Oh, not another one. That's 2 cardinal sins we've seen last pit stop. They've made a huge error, so that will put Björklund out of contention for a top 15. So for James Barry out front, it looks okay, to be honest. I think he'll be, I mean, what we've been seeing for the pit stop delta, it's been somewhere around 25 to 30 seconds, somewhere around there. So yeah, he's looking okay to be in and around 10th place, 9th or 10th.
Yeah, he was a driver who had victories last year, James Barry. He took a wonderful battle over Mount Panorama. Björklund, though, will see Avanyi go by. It's a 40-second hold and wait for Kim out there at this point, and he will know that this is going to absolutely sting. Down to 12th position now, waiting for the service to be done, and with only a handful of minutes left in this race, Alfredo Malo is knowing that he's only a handful of moments away from taking that lead back from James Barry and giving himself the best possible position for the feature race where the points will get scored. He will look around and see Dennis Kiriakopoulos yet to pit either, but the gap 19 seconds at the moment as it stands. As we focus on James Barry now, with 3:37 remaining in this heat, trying to work out whether he's going to fall into line. I think he'd be looking around somewhere like Christoph Lipp. That would be the end goal. Now he finally hits the lane.
Does he speed? That's the question. It looked pretty close, but he's got it stopped in time. No penalty popping up on our screens here, so that's a great job from him. That's a well-executed strategy as well. He's done well to go long, way longer than everyone else. Of course, him and Kyrgiakopoulos are the two to go longest, and I think, is Kyrgiakopoulos going to box here as well? I'd imagine he would.
Yeah, he's coming in as well. So 4 seconds only for James Barry. He doesn't need a lot of fuel in there. He needs just a cup. So there goes Alfredo Malo. And James Barry here is going to be in a scrap with Håvard Mulekson. Muleksen's just gone by him and he's got up to speed. He's going to be between him and Teva Ryan. So he's in an IGL Coatings breaded sandwich right now for the two dominant teams out there proving they're going to be in a fight. Here, Kyrgiakopoulos is going to come back out intent, so he'll be very happy with that effort. But James Barry is going to be right there with Mulekson. Here comes Kyrgiakopoulos. He'll fall behind Gonzaga, so that will put him to 11th place, but very comfortable at the moment.
What a strategy call from James Barry. That was perfectly executed. He had a really strong pit, and you could tell he was right on the limit, a big puff of smoke right before he boxed. And of course, yeah, as you mentioned, only 4 seconds stopped in the lane. He didn't need much, only needed 2 laps worth of fuel. So yeah, he's probably dropped back the order a little bit during the course of this race, and that's why we've not seen much of him, just because he's been taking those longer stops every single stint. But now he's come to the front and he's sitting comfortably in a podium position.
He is, and so now when you're in a podium place, you can sit and be quite happy. And a podium in a heat doesn't mean much, but psychologically out there, if you say you're top 3 going into the main race, that puts an almighty amount of confidence in you as you wait for the consolation.
It also has the converse effect of adding a little bit of pressure as well. You've got a bit of expectation personally on yourself for that second race coming up later on. That, you know, you're a top 3, you want to try and better every single result as much as you can. So, yeah, it depends on which way it's going to affect James Barry. I'd like to think he just has the confidence as they come past. We see the white flag waving there for the marshal. So, can James Barry get the gap down Mulekson and have a last lap dive at? As we mentioned earlier, there's not many overtaking opportunities outside of T1, but with already been through that corner, it's going to have to be an almighty move if he's going to do anything to try and take second place.
Alfredo Malo comfortable, 8 seconds clear of the field here over these 45 minutes that he's been running out there at the front. Mulekson and Barry and Teva Ryan are there second, third and fourth. Christoph Lipp is only going to be a passenger to it out there at this stage, but look at the confidence that Alfredo Malo drives with, a car that pretty much has stayed glued to the racing surface. I haven't seen anything nary a kick out of tail. In fact, that's the first time I've seen even a wiggle into the corners from Alfredo Malo, working on the steering wheel, shallow off the exit, but he knows he can start dialing it back now. He doesn't need to push. He's got the job done of what he needs through Corintaio corner. He'll have 2 Biondetti lefts and rights, which will be nearly flat out in this machinery, and then Busin corner will hold then for him. He knows how important it was to start off this racing on the right foot. As a heat goes, he is going to be A1 in position for this one. Alfredo Malo is going to come to the line and he will just cruise to a victory here in this heat. Håvard Mulekson is looking at second, with James Barry giving a good hunt down for the top 3, but not quite the key. We're going to have to go back to 14th place because it is very close right now on the bubble here between Byron Crawford, who is in, and Sauli Raitinen, who is out at this moment. Remember, he started 10th, got involved in an incident and fell on back. So there is Sauli here trying to get the SRMH car into position, attacking with a big line at Busin, but it's not going to mean much because Gabriel Berger will pull Byron Crawford along and we will believe will make it into the dance.
Made it in. Yeah. Great result there from Byron Crawford, just to hang on right at the end. Less than 3/10 was the gap at the end there, so that was great to see.
Wonderful stuff then, so we can get some confirmation of results then from this opening heat that has sorted itself out. 45 minutes to see who can get themselves into the picture. Alfredo Malo getting it done, 6.9 over the line. over Horvath Mullickson, with James Barry and Christopher Teverayan there in 3rd and 4th. Christoph Lipp will will find himself 5th at the end of that race, with the inert Argon car of Andreas Friedrich there in 6th. Franek Sikorsky was best am in 7th, with Kjetil Larsen 8th, Peter Ivanyi 9th, and George Gonzaga rounding out your top 10. Dennis Kiriakopoulos would be 11th, ahead of Mehmet Berat Okush, who went from the back of the field, mind you, to 12th position, a gain of 19 spots over that heat for Prism Motorsport, with Gabriel Berger, Byron Crawford in with the 11th racing car, and we believe Sauli Raitanen out there after starting the race in 10th. Jeven Seiko is then in 16th, with Mika Hulkkonen and Kim Andre Björklund then as they are setting up, as they will all look around and see Friedenlund, Gianluca Elia, Melo de Graaf there and co, all looking to dive through. Now, as far as I'm looking here, this consolation race hasn't gridded necessarily the way that it's wanted to, because only the top 7 have transferred. So this is going to be a weird one here in the consolation, where maybe only 1 is going to go through. So this could, actually no, I am just getting word, it's 8 through on the consolation. So that's where it's gone, and where those 7 that would have gone through in Heat 2 because it's been skipped, it's 8 going through for Heat 2. So only the top 7 went on through, but it's critical for Crawford because he'll start himself in 7th. Kjetil Larsen will be in control. We've only got a minute to grid, so let's just cycle through it right now, because you've got Gonzaga there, Kiriakopoulos, Okus and Berger, then 3rd and 4th. There's 24 cars taking to it, including Sebastian Lipp, who is not going to be there and going. This is going to be a lightning fast run that's going to go through, and everyone is going to really put themselves into a position where they're all trying to go through. Green flags dropped. A number of cars aren't really understanding where they've got to be, and so with such a run here, as everyone has gone and got themselves the panic here, it's going to be a case of 8's going to go through. Some have missed the start, and so this is a very, very quick run that's gone through. Everyone is just getting on the radio going, quick, you've only got a minute, get on grid.
Yeah, I don't think half the grid were expecting that. There was a lot of cars that got a really rough getaway. We saw a lot of tyre smoke, and there was one car specifically I saw was at a 45-degree angle as the green light came up on the screen there. He had it. Oh, there's a car off. Is that Björklund?
Oh, it's Björklund, who is heavy into the wall, out of the Poggio Secco, and just like that, is going to be struggling, was right on the edge of grip, and the car just decided, no, I've not got enough in the tyres to hold myself steady. So very tough to deal with. Björklund, no contact then. This is out of the Poggio Secco, so was going through the left of turn number 2 of Luco, then through the Poggio Secco. You can see fighting the level of grip, and it snaps.
It's almost identical to what we saw in the first race. The same corner, it just went a little bit wide over the curb, and that's all it takes to unsettle this thing. These cars are very stiff as well, and the aero platform is incredibly sensitive, so if you upset that even a little bit, that's all it takes. And of course, you add the cold tyres on top of that. This is not an easy car to drive on the first couple of laps, and we saw it from the getaways as well. Like, a lot of cars got a lot of wheel spin off the start, and yeah, it was a couple of really, really close calls on the start-finish line there, as everyone was rushing to get on the grid and get the race started.
Yeah, so there is a lot out there, as it has now had a lot to deal with off of this start. Everyone has now turned around and looked around and saying, look, I am going to have to make a lot of progress out there. It doesn't matter if you're first, second, third. Dennis Kiriakopoulos third, Sauli Raitanen fourth. Here is the battle then up the hill with Ivanyi leading. This is going to be Raitanen to the inside of Kiriakopoulos, trying to get the move on the inert car. Little bit of a push away to get that sorted. A bit elbows out as now around the outside of the Luca corner and into the Poggio Secco. There is the cover. 7th currently is with Friedenlund at this stage. So, yeah, it is with Hulkkonen, because Lars-Erik Friedenlund's gone through. So Hulkkonen currently the margin in or out. Eric Benson, the AM, sitting there, and it's 2 AMs right now who are looking around going, well, it's one of us at the moment.
Yeah, I think Kiriakopoulos will be a bit frustrated with Raitanen. They had a gap out back, and they had the slipstream almost broken, and it was a pretty comfortable top 4 breakaway, but now with them battling in the first couple of corners, it's brought this group back in, and these guys who are close to being around the bubble will be eager to try and move forward, because obviously they're going to be looking in their mirror every single corner to make sure they're not about to be ran through and knocked out of the consolation race. So typically the guys around the bubble will be wanting to move forward, and then the guys in front of them want to try and hold station and just maintain that buffer to the drop zone.
Yep, so that buffer is going to be really important here. If you can build a margin early, because they've only got themselves 15 minutes in this race. That means they've not got many laps at all from where they've started. They've got to really jump. There are drivers out there like Kethel Larson, who's out of position in my view and isn't going to really get time to jump up the order. This is where slipstream's going to be critical. And now here comes the pass then on Mika Hulkkonen. This is going to be for 7th and what will be a transfer spot, because 8 is the number that you want to remember here at this stage. 8 go through, and so Benson gives himself a bit of safety. He's currently in right now. It's Gianluca Elia who is looking to try and build the chance to jump on through. So I would turn around and say, this is about give yourself as much chance as you can to go and attack. Hold yourself in the slipstream. You've got a good chance. Now through Materazzi and the Borgo San Lorenzo. Here comes the big drop down the hill.
Yeah, these guys have lost a little bit of the slipstream to the guys ahead. Hulkkonen's now, he's got it back within around half a second, but it was close to 7/10 there a minute ago, just with that half look from Benson. So yeah, it's a really tough spot for Benson, because obviously he's wanting to move forward. He doesn't want to be the one on the bubble, but by doing that, you could potentially lose the draft into the top 6 and then leave yourself exposed to be attacked later on in the race. So yeah, this is really, really uncomfortable for Benson. He's just got to try and take it lap by lap and see how the race is unfolding. If Elia's putting you under a lot of pressure, you're going to want to get that move done as quickly as possible. But if he's struggling to stay within around 0.3 like he has been at the moment, then you can afford to just sort of chill out, let Hulkkonen pull you around, and if you get an opportunity to take it, minimise the time loss.
So, critical now, Hulkkonen, and then as you sit with Eric Benson, they are right there trying to give what they can. You can sense the level of desperation under braking, the big wide lines being taken, because this is your last chance to get up for points here. You are trying to give yourself as many opportunities as you can, and I think you're looking at Eric Benson here. He wants to put a car between himself and the bubble if he can. He'll try and pull up the hill here to San Donato. Friedland and Crawford as well fighting in front. That's very deep, huge lock-up by Benson. He'll go deep. He'll actually fall outside the top 8. Gianluca Elia now hits the transfer.
Yeah, that is the risk when you're in that position. That's why I said, if you're in Benson's position and Elia's not all over your back end, you can just sit there and just take it lap by lap. But he's gotten a little bit moody, a little bit anxious almost, just trying to put a bit of breathing room between himself and the drop zone. And it's ended up putting him in the drop zone just by mistiming that braking point. So it's a really, really tough skill to try and manage and learn while you're out there racing as well, like trying to be the one on the bubble. It's kind of like when we had the reverse grids in the Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. That was one of the most tricky things, was you want to stay P8 because you know you're going to reverse forward, but you're going to have everyone else behind wanting pole position off you. So it's a similar kind of mindset. It's really, really tricky to manage, and it's all about calculated risk.
And so calculate that risk at your own peril out there at this point. You do note that these drivers are just trying to find themselves with safety. If you're having to push in this group, Byron Crawford's group and on out there at halfway through here in this race, they are going to have to push at 10/10s, because the moment they don't, they invite pressure in and they invite overtaking. That's the last thing you need, is to be dealing with that. Change for the lead then, Avani and Gonzaga, that's a change. So George is going to move himself up. And there's also the fact as well that where you finish in this consolation is your grid slot. This is the difference between 4th row and 5th at the moment.
Yeah, it also shows that these guys in the top 8, it's not a case of, you know, you're sitting P3 or whatever and you can just finish there because you're going to move into the next round. You're also battling for your starting grid position, as there's a lot of movement going on in the timing tower. I think there's been an accident somewhere in T1. There's a lot of cars moving up and down all at once.
Yeah, Ole Gunnar Stensrud then dropping back a little bit then, and that is going to see a lot of change. So Gianluca Elia was looking around, and the 2 cars that went off in front were Friedenlund and Byron Crawford. They both overcooked it at San Donato. They both had to take a trip to the gravel, and that has made a change. So Robert Botha is now in, Byron Crawford out. So this was Avani through the final corner. He just catches a wiggle through the middle at the point he'd like to put the power down to the floor. So that's why that position changes. But critically, now Robert Botha in Byron Crawford is going to set out and say, look, that is perfect at the moment for me. Right now it's the Romanian who sits on the in as things stand. We take a look here with Benson and Hulkinen. This is 6th and 7th out there at this point in time. 6:40 on the clock. And so you look at the gap here, Byron Crawford's got a second to chase.
Tell you what, Eric Benson will be counting his blessings right now, because he had that mistake in T1 that put him outside of the top 8 transfer, and now all of a sudden he's magically got himself back in by doing absolutely nothing. So he's been handed a second chance. Does he capitalise on it this time? He's a bit fortunate. Bota's about 6/10 behind, and he's got a 1 second gap back to Byron Crawford, who's going to be absolutely desperate to get back into this top 8. As we see a switch for position, that's Hulkinen making a move on Elliott.
Danny inside, quite nice there in terms of the move. A little bit of cloud cover coming over the circuit then as they look to try and push on. Track temperature 28 degrees, so it has cooled slightly here in this run. And so now I think you're looking at Hulkinen and Elia and Benson and Bota. They've just got to realise that we're all in here at this moment with, what, 3 or 4 laps to go here, Kevin? If I was a driver and I was looking to try and corral the troops, I'd say, look, we can't afford to race, let's just keep the pace up.
Yeah, if I was anyone from P5 down to P8, I'd be just holding my position saying, you know what, forget about the starting position for the next race, let's just ensure that we actually get there first. Keep the pace high, work together where possible, do not start going side by side through the middle part of the lap and just losing unnecessary time. There's no reason to. You're only going to start one position higher. It's a hell of a lot better than not even making the race whatsoever. So yeah, for these guys in the second half of the top 8, for them, grid position will be a little bit less of a concern. It's more just making it.
Yeah, on the radio goes Melis, who has a little bit of an argument with Paulo Bremer by the sound of things, so he's not too happy over it. But I tell you what, Byron Crawford is doing a wonderful job. He's halved the gap effectively out there. It was a second a lap ago. It's now 6/10. Top 3 fighting Gonzaga, Ivani and Raitinen. So they'll be looking for the victory, and for the bubble, it's Byron Crawford. He's almost pulled Kjetil Larsen into play as well. Here comes Ivani, the Slovakian, for the race lead. He's going to go the long way around at San Donato to get this done. Benson's now going to get to move here, try and go. I think they're going to be 3 wide here on the bottom of your screen. They are 3 wide on the bottom of your screen there. And Gianluca Elia will get the move done then on Benson. Hulkinen holds, and suddenly it's going to be a 6-car group soon that they go through. Suddenly decorum's out the window, and everyone, basically it's rats off a sinking ship. I'll let you go. Little look over in towards Materazzi, not there.
Yeah, these guys are clearly not listening to what we're saying up here, because they're doing the complete opposite right now. They've just brought 2 extra cars into this top 6 battle, and yeah, I would not like to be in Elia or Benson's position right now, especially Robert Bota. He's in a really, really tricky spot where he can't influence what's going on in front of him because he's just too far behind. But you can just see these guys scrapping it out every single lap, and they've just dragged these other 2 cars behind right into the scrap. So Bota was sitting pretty at the tail of the field, or the tail of the queue, had a really easy job, just sit there and do nothing. But the only danger with that is the cars ahead, if they do decide to start scrapping, could put you in a really, really tricky spot.
It very much can, and so I think that as they are trying to hold their ground and say, look, this is why we want extra places, we want to be up the grid a bit more, have a better chance of finding a victory out there. I think this is really telling here that Hulkinen and co are all there in line. Ivani then will look around at the clock. There's 2 laps to go here in this race, and everyone's looking to shift over up the hill to San Donato. Ivani's going to get the run. Look at that train of 6 there on the top of your screen, fighting then for the bubble. And this is where Gianluca Elia is going to go to the outside. Mika Hulkinen's going to try and be better on the brakes here, and there's not much for Benson there, not much for Bota. Crawford is there, but Crawford, I think, is going to have to try and do something very, very intuitive to make this move, because he's stuck 5 in the train with 4 lots of tow to get, but even 3 lots of tow there for Robert Bota is more than enough to hold your ground.
Yeah, they're just about hanging on here in this top 8. This is a really... I sympathise with these guys that are sitting in 7th and 8th place, because I've been in scenarios like this before where you're just getting dragged into battles and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not even your fault. You're just sort of there on the track and you're getting pulled back into scraps that you don't want to really be a part of. And yeah, Gianluca Elliott has managed to extend a bit of a gap out to Hulkinen. So that would be him almost secured in P5 as we're going to hit the white flag this time around. But yeah, it's all starting to really compress now with this last lap, and I was mentioning earlier in the broadcast that T1 is the place to get the move done. They're all going to be absolutely sending it to T1 in this lap.
Hulkinen wide then, over at Corintaio. This opens up the door, and not quite taken by Eric Benson, but he'll be all over him now. Heading to Bucine in the final lap. He thought about a dive down the inside. He's not going to get there. Botta takes a big wide line through the corner. He's trying to maximise the exit here as he now looks to get the drive up the hill through this consolation. He will look at Kettle Larson and Byron Crawford, and Crawford doesn't have a run on the key place to get this pass. In fact, it's going to be Benson who will get the launch for the lead. Gonzaga's got the run. He's held on. You've got Sally Reitinen in there as well. They're sliding about 2s and 3s, and you've got Larson on the outside. Hulkinen's going to get back to the inside of Eric Benson. That's going to be a move. Crawford's going to hold over to Luca Napoggio. Second is contact. Crawford's off. Crawford's in the barriers, and Crawford's out. Kettle Larson into the back of it. Clumsy to say the very least. And so now it's Larson's turn to get to Robert Botta as they hit the brakes. Benson will look around at it and say he's okay at the moment. He's got one car behind. Battle for the lead is still there between Gonzaga and Avani. Look at Benson on the top, almost pushing Mika Hulkinen through the corners. At the bottom of your screen, Gonzaga is still holding his ground, knowing he's only got the climb up the hill and a couple braking zones that he's got to be careful of, but the race is on everywhere. Checkered flag is going to be out for these drivers when they reach the finish line, because 15 minutes is there on the clock as it currently stands. Now looking at this one, it's all about Gonzaga. Checkered flags come out early, by the way, because of the tow that Byron Crawford has just had, rushing through the Biondettis and over towards the Bucine corner. Gonzaga is going to be safe at the moment. Avani is going to try and throw what may as he now looks for this drive over towards the line. Great hold, George Gonzaga, on what has been a crazy race in the consolation. He'll take the win. Avani second, Reitinen third, Kiriakopoulos fourth. The drag race to the line. It looks like Kettle Larson has had a mistake through the final corner. There was contact into the back of Botta, and critically it's Robert Botta who gets the final spot. There's Crawford's accident then on that final lap.
Yeah, he's just moved across and braked a bit early in front of him, and that was the end for Byron Crawford. That's a big shame. He had so much hope there, and we saw it coming. It just all boiled over there on the last lap.
Confirmation, George Gonzaga gets it done ahead of Peter Avani, Sauli Reitinen, Dennis Kiriakopoulos, Gianluca Elia, Mika Hulkinen, Eric Benson and Robert Botta make their way through the consolation, as Lars-Erik Friedenlund will be on the outside looking in for Norway, SimRacing Norway, and Kettle Larson then rounding your top 10. You look down there, the likes of Stensrud in there, Menno de Graaf in 15th, Björklund, big troubles for him, and also for Shoshaw there in 20th position, who was really not getting the day that's wanted. We are into warm-up then at this moment. Drivers like Erli Henrik Mulekson there in 18th, Luke Crowley, a retiree, then in 21st. So, consolation done. Take a breath. They got 3 minutes before a 20-minute feature. This one would be for the points. Jake Sperry and Kevin Ellis Jr. here. I tell you what, this has been a very frantic start to running, and they are going to be looking around at this formation here, this 20-minute feature coming up, and they'll be looking at, okay, we are the 15 that are still here from the 31 that started. How are we now going to set ourselves into the mind frame of we just got to go out there and get what we can? There will be 8 drivers in that field here, Kevin, that have just done 3 races back to back to back by the end of this one.
Yeah, the key thing for these guys is just trying to take notes on what your competitor's done in the first couple races. Of course, you've had a couple races to calm the nerves, ease the nerves a little bit. Now you know what to expect and what drivers are going to drive like. But the hard one will be for the guys who auto-advance straight through the heat. They would have been watching that consolation and thinking, wow, if that's what this race is about to be like, I've got to be, you know, on my toes this entire race. So, yeah, I think the heat was relatively calm compared to that consolation, that was absolutely crazy. And if the rest of the season is going to be like that, I cannot wait to see what Spa is going to be like in round 2.
It's going to be very aggressive out there, but the question is going to be asked now from those in warm-up. You've got time to really understand how the racing is going. The starts are critical. You've got to get the run up to San Donato to get it correct. Alfredo Malo has been the quickest, but there are drivers who are sitting there who have had to fight their way through, the likes of Avani and Reiten and Gonzaga. Because it has been so frantic there in that consolation, Kevin, do you think that they're going to be looking at this as, right, we're just going to go for it and we're going to see what sticks?
I mean, yeah, if you're not the absolute fastest out there, then you could look at it as you've got nothing to lose. You can go out there and do a lap that you know you can do and start somewhere in the mid-pack, maybe in the top 5 if you're lucky, or you might as well just absolutely send it and hope that it sticks. Yeah, if you're the absolute quickest, like we saw from Alfredo Melo, then you know that you've got to just do a lap that you know you can do. You don't want to throw it away. You want to give yourself an opportunity to try and win the full thing. But for these guys who are a little bit further down and just come through the consolation, I'd maybe take a minute just to take a breath, let your brain sort of calm down a little bit, let the heart rate come down, and then try and refocus in the last couple of minutes and just get ready to throw absolutely everything at this quali lap.
So, warm-up finds itself complete. The last chance to get yourself set and acclimatized for the final race of the night. And this one for all the marbles. You have got to make sure that you are on point. It will be Alfredo Malo who will have the control of the field then in that position number 1, with Horvard Mulekson alongside him for company from IGL and Coatings and Sander Traffic Scholar. You've then got James Barry 3rd, Christopher Teverayan there in 4th position, with Christoph Lipp and Andreas Friedrich 5th and 6th positions. Franek Sikorsky as an AM will go from 7th. Won't be the only AM in here, with George Gonzaga, Peter Avani and Sally Wrighton in 9th and 10th. Dennis Kiriakopoulos and Gianluca Elia then in 12th, with Mika Holken and Eric Benson, the other 2 AMs who have made it in, and Robert Bota, who will go from the back of the field in 15th position out there. Bota will not take to the start then of this one. He has decided that he is out of the session at the moment, which means we'll only wait for Sauli Raitanen to go and get up onto the grid. And so right now, I would turn and look at this and say one driver's going to lose those points, and the gridding procedure has already happened. So no Sauli either, as we'll get ourselves to the grid. Green flag will drop and we are underway. So this is going to be a lightning fast start from Avani, and Alfredo Malo has got a very good launch as well. James Barry now already looking to get into line. He's going to move to the inside. This is a big power move, looking for the race lead. Watch out on the brakes here to San Donato. James Barry has got himself a whole shot, and he is going to try and fight for this. Malo's got the inside into Luco, and the Poggio Secco covers the line at turn 2. Brilliant stuff.
What a comeback off the start there from Malo. He was not expecting James Barry to take to the pit exit to get up his inside. He defended all the way to the white line, made his intentions clear, and James Barry thought, no, there's still a gap, I'm going to take it. So a great job there from Malo to hang on. He's had a really strong few corners afterwards. Got the gap out to 4/10 as everyone else in the mid-pack has managed to get themselves sorted out into single file.
They very much have. Mulekson there in 3rd, and now what a move down the inside of the Arrabbiata. Barry's left the door wide open, and look who's bolted through the gate.
Mulekson caught him completely off guard there. I don't think Barry, I wasn't expecting it, so James Barry definitely wasn't either. He's completely sent one up the inside, but what it's allowed now is Malo to get 7/10 clear. These guys cannot afford to lose slipstream to that leader out front. We know he's quick. We saw it in the first race. You cannot afford to lose slipstream. You've got to keep him under pressure and try and have a few shots at him later in the race.
0.8 of a second, that's wide through Corintaio on the exit, and this is the panic station. Now, these drivers have fought amongst themselves on the opening lap. Alfredo Malo is looking to try and break away, move back down the inside, then just behind as Teverayan then just about gets the pass on Andreas Friedrich, but Friedrich will now get the launch up the hill. They've got 20 minutes to figure out this race and say this is going to be for all the points. Here comes Friedrich straight back up the hill though, just in front of that. Here comes Christoph Lipp on James Barry. He was nearly first. They're going to be almost 3 wide here into San Donato, but critically Lipp on the outside is going to hold himself well. It's going to be in line, a little bit of braking. They hold themselves well. Vanyi also going at this side by side. He wants himself down the inside of Teverayan, and Teverayan on the outside paint, very nearly finding trouble, gets the drive into Materazzi.
That is move of the night from Christoph Lipp. What a move around the outside. That was so difficult. That's so much more difficult than it looks. He was so deep on the brakes. Looked as if he was going to miss the corner. Managed to get it pulled up right at the last minute as the track transitioned uphill and got round the outside of James Barry. That was a sensational move from Christoph Lipp.
Yeah, it's a wonderful move, and so it sets itself up brilliantly. And look at that gap, just teetering on a second for Alfredo Malo here with Horvan Mulixen. It looks exactly like what we saw in the heat as they got to try and sort themselves out. +2 then for Christoph Lipp out there. Andreas Friedrich up 1. Peter Avanyi is up 2 spots then and will be very happy with the launch and things as they go. They will now note with these drivers that they are all there in line, and so it's all about getting yourself the run back to San Donato, because that's the only straight of length here around this place. Every other straight is about 100 meters too short for a big move.
Yeah, there's also no real heavy braking zones around here either, which is of course your golden opportunity for an overtake. So T1 is going to be where everything is going to be hinged on. As you can see, Teverayan has got a run. That's Friedrich moving around a little bit in front of me. He goes defensive. Teverayan decides I'm going to go up the inside. He manages to get it covered off to Friedrich. And they're going to have to settle back in line again as we see Vincent making a move on the back to move up from last place. And unfortunately, to say, Franek Sikorsky, has gradually slipped back. I think he lost 2 or 3 positions on the first couple of laps. He's down to 9th.
Avanyi's run a bit wide, and he finds himself there with George Gonzaga diving through. And there is Sikorsky now, and he'll be side by side to Casanova around the outside. What a pass! Franek Sikorsky gets it done on Avanyi there. That was all about commitment and to hold the power down, expecting the car on the inside to understeer out. Masterful stuff to leave the room.
We were just saying Christoph Lipp had the move of the night. Sikorsky comes straight back with a second contender there. That was a great move after just saying that he'd fallen back a little bit. He's now back up to 8th, and what a move.
What a great move. And now look at this, Avanyi's going to lose another one. That's Kyriakopoulos through, struggles under braking, and suddenly you're going to turn around and say Jean-Luc Elia has half a chance. Avanyi here has been rattled for about half a lap here, Kevin, and how does he now find the confidence underneath him? Those 4 tyres are trying to slide out everywhere here in this Radical SR10.
Yeah, I think he's just had a rough time of it. The tyres have probably already started to overheat. He's just working too hard too early. He's down this main straight. What he needs to do is just take a deep breath, relax his hands a little bit, try and remove any tension from his shoulders or his legs, his ankles, everything like that. Try and get himself back into his rhythm, just drive how he knows he can drive. He's got the pace to move back up. You see James Barry getting past Christoph Lipp.
Yeah, that's a pass for 3rd, so the 2 inert cars are trying to work to stay with Mulixen and Malo, and Mulixen has cut the gap down to 0.6 of a second, so he's done well. On the bottom of your screen, you've got Teverayan here in the fight for 5th with Andreas Friedrich at the moment. He's trying to work out whether he's going to have a way forward, and he's going to be able to jump on up and gain the placement. At the moment, he cannot. So Teverayan is now going to be in a place where he wants to try and get top 5 points out there. It would be a perfect start to the season. The more points you put on early, the easier it gets later on in the season.
Yeah, a strong start to the season just takes a bit of that pressure off. If you get off to a rough start, you're playing catch-up for the whole season, and you know that every single little mistake you make is just removing any opportunity to try and gain those points back. Whereas if you can get a strong start to the season, bank some points early, it takes a bit of the pressure off. You don't have to be perfect. As Teverayan capitalising on a mistake there from Andreas Friedrich round the outside. That's brave.
It is Corintaio corner. He's trying to get it now. Does he have the run for the Biondettis? No. Friedrich's just got the coverage through the first of the 2 Biondettis, but It does open up, you've seen lift off early then from Teva Ryan. He wants to try and ease into the corner, get the drive through the middle and attack back up the hill out of Busey off the exit along the main straight. And the gap, 3/4 of a second at the front. Horvath Mulekson is really clawing this back. Barry and Lipper trying to hold. Here comes Teva Ryan then to get the pass done on Friedrich. You've also got Gonzaga, who's going to be arriving late here, so there's going to have to be coverage of defence to the inside, and there's just enough room. Trying on the outside is Friedrich. He'll have to fall into line, and he will lose an opportunity. There goes around Gonzaga. He finds himself with contact. He backs it away from Luco, and now to the back of the pack he goes.
Well, it's all just boiled over a little bit there. It all got a bit jammed up with Teva Ryan making that move on Friedrich, and I didn't quite see actually what happened to Gonzaga, if someone actually ran through the back of him or what happened there. But yeah, he was in a nice little position. I think he was sitting P7, and all of a sudden his night has absolutely gone backwards there. We were talking about what a good start to the season could do, and for Gonzaga that's gone the wrong way.
It's gone more than the wrong way. Out there you can see he was in line, and you can see how indecisive he was. He was fighting a car that didn't really want to turn the way he wanted it to there. He wanted a smooth turn of the car. It was jerky, it was quick, it was trying to snap on him a couple times, and the moment he had to commit to the corner, the car just went, nope, the back wants to see what the front's looking at.
I think he actually clipped the back of Andreas Friedrich. I think he slowed more than he was expecting through that left-hander, and he's just nudged the rear end of him. It's so easy to do. Of course, you can't see the front end of these cars. They go down by quite a bit as we cut on board here with Eric Benson at the bottom of your screen. Look up the inside of Gianluca Elia into the last corner. This is an interesting place to try and make a move considering the straight, but Elia will carry the run off the corner. So Benson will just need to file back in line, get that slipstream, gather up the run, and then have another crack at him here on the straight. There's no slipstream ahead. They've lost the draft to Kiriakopoulos as Elia gives Benson the inside. That should be pretty easily done for Eric Benson.
Yeah, just deciding, look, we've got to try and cooperate out there at this point. We're on our own here. It's between me and you right now. We're relying on mistakes from cars in front to gain more places than we are. Benson and Elia have done a brilliant job out there, and they are managing this quite nicely at the moment. There is your leaders on the top of your screen. That gap is about 5 to 6 tenths of a second. Mulekson really starting to hold himself hold Alfredo Mallow accountable at the moment, with James Barry and Christoph Lipp there behind in 3rd and 4th positions, and they are going to be keeping an ever-present threat in this race if those two drivers can't get along and can't figure out the pace they need to keep level out there at the moment.
Yeah, it's really exciting actually to see Mulekson closing that gap on Alfredo Mallow. It looks like we're going to have a good race for the win coming into the last half of the race. Of course, just over 10 minutes left, or 10 minutes exactly now as we look at it. And yeah, it's a shame really. James Barry had such a great start. He took the lead straight away, and then Alfredo Mallow bit back, and ever since then James Barry just has not looked as if he's had the pace to hang on to these two. But yeah, what a drive from Mulekson so far. He's really keeping Mallow honest. He's learned the mistakes that he made in the first race, and he's corrected them straight away, and this is far from straightforward out front for Alfredo Mallow.
Well, here's the critical factors. Franek Sikorsky now will go for 6th against Andreas Friedrich here, back in this bottom side of your screen. He will go and get the look, and he will comfortably get by. The critical fact is Horvath Mulekson had an opportunity to win a race on Friday. He was up against one of the Americas drivers in Andre Castro, a former pro stripe. The issue that he ran into on the final laps was he miscounted where he needed to be. He wanted to be second going on to the final lap. He was first, and he lost the race and couldn't quite find the move. Now he is second, and now he's got to try and time the move. It's slightly different from what he experienced on Friday night.
Well, at least he's got a bit of experience under his belt. He's made mistakes, he can learn from them now and carry that into this, so he's more well informed. So yeah, the gap at the moment is hovering around half a second. He closed in, and it's now just starting to stagnate a little bit. I think Alfredo Mallow is either responding by pushing just a little bit harder, or there's a bit of dirt air starting to affect Mulekson, or alternatively also tyres. Maybe Mulekson's used too much tyre trying to close that gap down, because as we saw at the start of the race, it was close to a second early on, and of course Mulekson brought it right down, so he might have used a bit too much tyre, as Alfredo Mello takes a lot off the left of that chicane there. It might be close to an off-track penalty, but either way, gap is 6.5 tenths coming onto the main straight, so no move will be made by Mulekson, but he can try and close that gap back down again and just stay within touching distance.
He knows that he's in range. He's just got to try and time this to get to about 5 tenths, 4 tenths, 3 tenths of a second. That's what he'll be eyeing up. James Barry, 1.4 seconds here, will suddenly be realising, look, the train's leaving and I'm not coupled onto the carriage. So James Barry will be looking behind at his teammate Christoph Lipp. Teve Ryan, for example, Sikorsky and Friedrich then still in line, but they're now going to start finding a few troubles out there if they are going to realise that in this race, Kevin, they're not going to see the top 5. They're 1.7 seconds back right now. I guess these two are realising they're going to have to go tete-a-tete.
Absolutely, and despite what I was saying earlier about Sikorsky having a bit of a rough start, he's absolutely turned things around. He's now back up into P6 and absolutely on a charge. Now, I don't know if he's going to have the raw pace or the time to catch Teve Ryan, as he's getting towed along quite nicely by the James Barry group. So yeah, I think, as you say, P6 will be the maximum for Sikorsky, but I think he can take a lot of confidence from that. He's comfortably been the best AM all night long, and yeah, he's got a massive gap back to Eric Benson, many cars between himself and Benson as well. So yeah, no, Sikorsky, like, he's turned his night around. He had a bit of a rough start there at the start of this race, and he's just kept a cool head, made moves when it's counted, and he's got himself right back up into P6.
You would say he's done a job well done at the moment, and to be +1 for his run, he'll be very happy with the work that he is putting in at this point in time. Drive is going to be critical, and I just saw a little spike of a couple tenths of a second there for Håvard Mulekson. He's got to be careful that he doesn't overcook Busine corner. Up the hill there, you can see the drives. You've got Teve Ryan, who is trying to eye up potentially Christoph Lipp soon in the final 6 minutes of this race. It's a 3-car group here for one spot on the podium, and they are really trying to keep themselves held to account. Franek Sikorsky here in 6th is trying to keep his AM honours happy. He knows he's got a big gap back to Benson, but the moment he starts scrapping hard with Friedrich, he'll be back into the clutches of Avani and Kyriakopoulos, for example. Teve Ryan, I think he's got free real estate, so to speak, at the moment. Nothing really to lose here in 5th place, up against some of the best that Inert have to offer, and so he can just start chucking it in and really giving them something to think about.
Yeah, he's in a fantastic position at the minute. No pressure out back. All he needs to worry about is what's going on right in front of him. But of course, he has got the difficult situation where they are teammates. So Teve Ryan can easily go for a move on Christoph Lipp, and Christoph just decides that he's going to lose enough time, drop Teve Ryan out of slipstream of James Barry if he was to get the move done. So yeah, Teve Ryan, I think, although the podium is right there, I cannot see any scenario. Oh, inside!
Wow, he has prized that open with a crowbar. It's Christopher Teve Ryan then just getting that one open, and Christoph Lipp won't be happy with a move like that. He left the door ajar, and Teve Ryan said, right, coming through gangway.
This is the tough thing, though. He's got the move done, but Christoph Lipp is going to come straight back at him. So I think you can expect to see James Barry scuttle off into the distance here and secure himself a podium tonight. As Christoph Lipp, as expected, he comes straight back at Teve Ryan, and with the strength of the slipstream, he might just clear him before braking. Teve Ryan tries to outbrake him. He's gone a bit deeper than Christoph Lipp under braking, and I can't. Oh yeah, he's cleared. He's cleared Christoph Lipp as well as behind. Andreas Friedrich has got a move done on Franek Sikorsky as well into T1.
Yep, so they're now starting to switch about. They've got 2 seconds. They can manage that at this point. This is where you've got to get game theory in the head. You've got to work out where's the best place for me. Teve Ryan getting his pass was critical. He has just grabbed a bit of gravel then out to the Borgo San Lorenzo as they will drop down the hill. But this is going to be important. Sikorsky then and Friedrich continuing on their run and saying, look, it's between us at the moment for our places, just like with 3:39 on the clock. It's between Mallow and Mulekson here, the two who have been unquestionably over the course of the running today at the front of this field right now, Kevin. A and A1 drivers, the two best in this European Series to start the season.
Yeah, they've just dominated the whole night, really, and they've showed absolutely no signs of letting up in this last feature race. But the difficulty here is that Malo is just too good through the twisty sections, and Mulekson cannot get close enough to even have an opportunity at him, which is going to be really frustrating because Mulekson is fast enough to stay in the slipstream, but he's not fast enough to actually get an opportunity to even go for a move. It's worth about 3/10 down the main straight is the slipstream. As we can see, Mulekson is about, 0.70 behind out of that last corner. It would get down to about 4.5, 5/10 as they hit the brakes. Yeah, this lap here he got about 2/10 gain down that main straight, so Malo got a better exit out of that final corner clearly. And yeah, these two have just been, head and shoulders above the rest of the field. They've had a great night.
And so they will know that it's about holding yourself to account, knowing that Alfredo Malo can't make any mistakes. Mulekson has got to keep the pressure on. These two are going to press each other to go as quick as they can. James Barry now underneath the pressure at this stage. Every corner is going to feel like the water torture hours at the moment. It's going to be straining these long corners here through Cervelli and over to the Arabiatas here. The pressure from Teva Ryan at this moment. We might as well start calling him TV because he's must watch.
Yeah, he's done an absolutely incredible job to even have an opportunity at James Barry. I was fully expecting him to be toiled in a massive scrap with Christoph Lipp and then lose the slipstream, but that move completely caught all of us off guard, including Christoph Lipp, and it's actually given him an opportunity to drive away from Christoph Lipp, give himself some breathing room, and on this final lap of the race, he's in the perfect position to have a shot at a podium spot against James Barry.
Alfredo Malo has turned the screw on this lap. It's 0.8 of a second here, and Mulekson, I think, is out of range at the moment if he wants to do anything on the final lap of this one, as Teva Ryan then starts to get a bit of understeer. James Barry then sees he's got a gap of about 1/4 of a second. They'll climb the hill for the penultimate time, which will turn to the final time. White flag here in the season opener at Mugello, and now watch out behind for Christoph Lipp. Watch out for Christoph Lipp, because now they're going to go 3 wide here into San Donato for third, and Barry has seen the end-all brake manoeuvre applied as he tries to go through. Christoph Lipp has got the inside. Barry chucks it to the outside of Luco, looking for the inside of the Poggio Secco. Teva Ryan leaves just enough room. It's okay for the moment for the podium. Lipp all over this right now, trying to find himself a chance, but still they can only hold their margin. 0.8 it is at the front still. Mulekson is going to need a miracle or a mistake. Teva Ryan's got the coverage here in third, down the hill through Casanova and into Cervelli, and now the Arabiata corners that follow immediately afterwards. Teva Ryan, though, still noting behind that Christoph Lipp and James Barry might have a chance at Corintaio the same way they did up the hill to Scarperia corner here in the hills of Tuscany, and then over to the next left-hander of Pelagio. They will look at Corintaio corner, and I don't think he's close enough here, is the likes of those behind. You look at Alfredo Malo and you realise, you understand that he has kept the pace up for Mulekson. He said, yeah, you may follow, but you can't keep up to go and make a move. Down into Busine corner, and now the final run on this one. One last burst of acceleration. Alfredo Malo, faultless to start the season. The master of Mugello. He will take the season opener. Mulekson is second, and critically, it is going to be Christopher Teva Ryan to put 2 IGL Coatings cars on the podium.
For Teva Ryan, take a bow. What a move on the final lap. That was absolutely incredible.
A brilliant, brilliant battling pass he needed to make up into San Donato corner. It made all the difference out there. Sikorsky will take AM honours in 7th position, so that will be a huge bit of prowess that he'll be happy with, as we'll get the confirmation of the 2 that didn't make the start of Sally Raitanen and Robert Bota. So field over the line. Results then will be as follows. It is car number 12 that gets the job done. Alfredo Malo winning by just about 0.9 of a second over Horvath Mulekson, with Christopher Teva Ryan then finding himself the last car on the podium in third place. James Barry and Christoph Lipp would have Andreas Friedrich behind. That's 3 inert cars in a row for 3 different teams, 4th, 5th and 6th, with Franek Sikorsky in 7th and Peter Ivanyi then in 8th. Dennis Kiriakopoulos would finish off in 9th, and the top 10 rounded out by George Gonzaga, who had his spin earlier on in the race. Eric Benson would finish 11th ahead of Mika Hulkkonen, with Jean-Luc Elliott the last finisher, and 2 non-starters in Sally Raitanen and Robert Botha then from all of the running that we have seen. Wow, oh wow, what a bit of racing that we have got. We've got Harvard Mullickson here along with us now to have a bit of a conversation with a second place finish here today. Now, Harvard, a day where you certainly had pace, great pace to work with, but just like Friday at second, I think Alfredo just had an extra little turn of pace that kept you at bay.
That is so true. He was really, really fast, and when he's that fast, it's really difficult to hold the gap in the dirty air on this track. So I was lucky to gain a bit on the straight, but he drove off in circuit. So yeah, but I'm happy with P2, so it's good.
It's a good start to the season for you. You turn around and you've been putting in a really good week's worth of effort. You've been right up there fighting against some of the very best. You were able to pull that gap back in to about 0.6, 0.5 of a second. Do you feel like you maybe used too much tyre there to get close, or was it just a case that he turned up the wick a bit more?
It's hard to say. I definitely felt the tires go off a bit, but it's hard to say because the dirty air makes the tires overheat. But yeah, he was a bit faster than me, so he clearly deserved the win.
Well, let's take a look then over to April for you, because you got Spa-Francorchamps as the second round of the European Championship. With this as a platform for you at Mugello, do you feel like Spa is going to now instill you with confidence when you go there, or are you looking at it as, say, something that maybe you're just going to look to try and get a solid finish from?
Always try to get solid finishes, but it's very hard to say. This is a really good field of drivers, very fast, almost everybody. So it's really, really difficult. So I just have to try to practice a bit more and try to gain a bit more and maybe be P1 one day.
Well, a pleasure to have you here with us with a second place finish. Harvard Mullickson getting a really, really good result out there. Christopher Tiveroyen then is going to be in second position, because I've just noted the A with the dot over his name, which means it's not Ryan, it's Royan, and he stood by with Kevin Ellis Jr.
Well, Christopher, I just want to say, first off, hats off for that move on that last lap. That was an incredible move to take James Barry on the final lap. But what was the sort of approach there? Because obviously you had 2 teammates ahead of you to try and get onto the podium. So what were you sort of going through your head and when it came to approaching those 2?
Yeah, like you said, whoa, that was intense. The last couple laps, I tried to set up the last lap for passing Barry, but I saw Christoph Lipp behind me was also close. So I knew the slipstream will be quite strong for him. So I didn't want to be as close to Barry on the last corner before the straight, but it was just about, so I had to just go on the inside there, and yeah, luckily it was fine in the end.
But looking forward to Spa for round 2. Obviously we saw quite a bit of overtaking here. The slipstream seems to be quite strong in these cars. What is your expectation going into that legendary circuit?
Yeah, of course, the straight's going to be important at this track. You maybe have a little bit more lap time to try to extend the gap before the next straight. But like you see here, the field is so close, so yeah, you need to think when you're racing, and the last lap is what matters.
Well, congrats again on the podium finish, and thanks again for the entertainment.
Thank you so much.
That was Christopher Tiveroyen there with us. Franek Sikorsky would win out in the amateur category. Now, Franek, you had a day today where you were right up there with some of the best in the pro division, constantly battling in and around the top 5, top 6, top 7. But talk us through the racing over the course of today, because I think what gave you the confidence out there was knowing you could hang there with some of the best that the pros had to offer as leading AM.
Yeah, the qualifying really gave me a good position for the first race. Was hoping definitely for much better result, but unfortunately the long winter made me a little less experienced with the radicals, haven't raced them in a lot of time, and unfortunately just after the start I dropped back into, I think, 8th position, which I was staying rather for the match of the race. Some battles at the start of the race 1 with James Barry. Then when he overtook me, I just didn't have anything in tires really when I got into the slipstream behind him. The car was all over the place and I was really fighting it to simply keep it on track. After second pit stop, I dropped back behind Andrea Friedrich. And that was the position where I stayed until the race finished. I really didn't have any amount of grip in tires left to fight him, and I was just able to hang on to him because of the slipstream on the long straight. Then coming into second race, also not the proudest of my starts. Some catching up to do, and then there was the battle until the very last meters with Andrea Friedrich again for 6th position.
Let's talk Spa then, because it's a circuit that has some similarity here to Mugello with the very long straights that they have. Do you feel that this was a good sighter for you for what will be coming along next month, and the amount of time that you need to get practiced and dialed in to a level that you feel comfortable with?
Hopefully, this Spa will be pretty different in these cars to what I have driven there, because even though these cars have a very decent amount of aerial grip, it won't be enough for to go, for example, flat out in Eau Rouge or at the left-handers just before the bus stop. So definitely some practice and testing will be needed to prepare myself, and my goal is again to fight amongst the very best drivers of the grid.
And we hope that that becomes a reality over the course of this year. Franek Sikorsky then getting the job done in AM and winning the amateur category out there, and can be very excited with that sort of result. In terms of where we will move to next here in the European Championship, it is the legendary circuit, the Spa-Francorchamps, in April 12th. It will be once again at 20 UTC to get that done, so it'll be around 8 o'clock for that. But Kevin, this is possibly the great all-round circuit that's there next, because you put any cars on it, it's great. You can even put 2 CVs on it and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of those circuits where it just works. No matter what car you take around there, it's always just a great track to go around and lap it at 100% effort. So yeah, it's great. You get a little bit of everything as well. You know, you get the low speed chicane, turn 1, then you've got the long straight up the Camel straight, up through Eau Rouge, Radion and everything. And then all through the middle sector, you've got the medium to high speed corners, the really flowy sections all the way through Les Combes, down to Rivage, No Name, Pouon, etc. It's just a great circuit, and if it's going to be anything like we saw today, overtaking will, yeah, there will be no shortage of that. I'll say that much.
Well, the only place you can catch that is with us here on RaceSpotTV. It's not the end of your radical racing action, because the Americas as well will have a great amount of running coming up shortly. to later on. So what brilliant running we've had between Kevin Ellis Jr. and myself, Jake Sperry. It has been where everyone's been trying to find big moves. This was the back to school day. Everyone work out who's going to be quick. Is there a new kid on the block that you have to worry about? It's not a case that the Litt brothers are going to have themselves full service of what they need. It's not a case that James Barry can go and sneak races like he used to. It's not even a case where Horvath Mulekson is going to be able to say he's head and shoulders above the field. It's a case of you turn around in bright orange. It's one Spaniard on top of the field's worth of running at the moment. His name's Alfredo Malo. He's been great for over a decade, and he proves to be great again as we'll head over to the home of racing in Belgium, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, very, very soon.